Tyrone, we'll finish this to a bit of fun. I'll flip it between both of you. We'll end the podcast with a few quick fire questions. We'll reflect on the season. I've only got 4 noted down, so don't expect too much. But I'll start with you, Ty. What was the best ground to visit this season, and why?
Probably the Zimbru Stadium in Chisinau in Moldova. Phenomenal architecture.
Historic venue.
Yeah, facilities, faultless facilities. Really lovely setting, picturesque. Soviet era flats just overlooking the ground. Really top draw. Get it on your list. No, beyond that, I mean, it's always hard to overlook the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I guess that's the gold standard now in the Premier League. Wembley's always good, if a little sort of underwhelming from a press point of view, I guess. Nottingham Forest's City ground was quite good, just because it feels it's a proper Premier League ground. Yeah, that'd probably be the...
You've got to give a mention to Goodison Park, Tyrone. I was saying to both of you the other day.
Well, I know, we were having this conversation on Saturday.
Obviously, when I'm on the blog, yeah, I always get the impression you both really enjoy your visits to Goodison Park, both of you.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say enjoy it. The press facilities there are a shambles, to be fair. Once you're in those seats, it's awful. But it is, it's an evocative old school stadium, isn't it? So I think that's the advantage it's got. And as a fan, I think it's a great away day as a fan. But it's not, from a press point of view, I wouldn't say it was comfortable. You'd need to be covering Everton full time. You'd need a knee replacement after a few years doing that job full time, I think.
In the Moldova game, Ty, that was when you were was it the sports hall, the press conference?
It was.
I think it was De Gea. Was it in that press conference?
It was De Gea, actually. Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Murray, Ten Hag, and obviously Ten Hag and De Gea. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was quite an experience, that trip. It would be fair to say. But yeah, it was. The facilities were not great. It was a very small stadium. I remember towards the end of the game, I mean, Ronaldo scores, I think it was 2-0. It's a pretty nondescript game, really. And Anthony had just signed, and there was some corporate facilities, I guess you'd say, behind the press area. And you just heard Anthony do what we've come to expect now, kind of run down the wing, box himself in, turn back onto his left foot and play a simple pass. And you just heard this Manc accent scream out from these corporate facilities, say, "Do something, Anthony, you're an £80 million winger." And I think it showed the ingenuity of United fans to get everywhere, even in Moldova, and also something that we would probably hear quite a lot when it comes to Anthony last season.
Yeah, well, he said what most think, probably, week in, week out, really, with Anthony. Sometimes he can't. He has a tendency to be a little bit frustrating. Samuel, come on, your turn. Most entertaining game in the season, and why?
Entertaining game?
Entertaining. When do you leave the stadium and you thought, you know what, that was fantastic? I felt privileged to be at that game.
The Barcelona home game, there was a sense of occasion around it because it's two of the biggest clubs on the planet, and also United came from behind to win. They won in a very uplifting way that evening. They were about to go on to Wembley. I mean, that was, I think, for the occasion, for the atmosphere, that was probably that was one of them. But it certainly maybe wasn't the most entertaining game. But this is the problem, I suppose. The high scoring games with United involved them getting thrashed most of the time. So that meant there was a lot of work for us afterwards and post-mortems and whatnot. I mean, strangely, there was, in terms of journalistically getting your teeth stuck into it, coming away from that Brentford game in August was, I think after that we thought anything was possible with United. The performance that day and where they were at and how it had gone on the previous season, we were talking about the possibility of United finishing in the bottom half of the table, and it didn't seem to, the prospect of that didn't seem particularly unrealistic, but it certainly wasn't the most entertaining game. So I'd probably stick with the Barcelona home game. But it was one of those seasons with United where there weren't that many vintage performances or wins in terms of Carpe Diem football or anything like that, because they did find goals hard to come by.
If I take you back on the road, Tyrone, what was the best away atmosphere you experienced this season?
Ooh.
Fortunately for Tyrone, he wasn't at St James's Park, was he, Samuel? You and Rich were at that game.
Yeah, and it's hard to experience the away atmosphere there, seeing as you put the away fans so
in the gods,
so far away to try and claim an advantage. of the worst. That and Wolves.
Press box is a good view, I'd say. It's bang on the halfway line, isn't it?
Press box is a good view,
Yeah.
but for
Do you mean away atmosphere is in the away following at the ground, or the atmosphere of those supporters?
Yeah, sorry, I'll rephrase the question. The home support, so the away support as Man United would view it. So let's say Everton fans were fantastic at Goodison Park, for example. That's the angle I was going for, Ty.
right, okay, so home fans at a United away game.
Yeah.
Sevilla for me, from the games I went to, that was some atmosphere. That it's one of those stadiums that isn't. People don't immediately think of it as being this cauldron on the continent, but I've been there twice now, and both times it has been extremely loud.
They all wearing the white tops, weren't they? And they were quite raucous, to be fair. I mean, you could hear it for the TV, so I can only imagine what it was like to be there.
It looked amazing on the telly, that one, didn't it?
I mean, they've got to have something in the water there to be that up for a Europa League tie. I mean, to really want to be in the Europa League every season and win it, there's something wrong there, but they keep on doing it.
I guess I can't think of one domestically, but at the risk of giving them a second mention, certainly at the start, the Forest games both started pretty lively, and Mon of Kintyre, when they walk out, is a great club song, and the atmosphere there always starts off pretty lively. But United beat them twice very easily as well. So
I'll open this up to both of you there. Probably makes sense. Most memorable press conference. This was probably an easier one to ask when Jose Mourinho was manager, and Samuel, I think you used to do colour pieces, didn't you, after Jose Mourinho's press conference, such as the antics he would get up to. But does any press conference from this season really stick out in either of your minds? Anything that Ten Hag said? Did he get animated at one point? Because nothing really comes to my head when I noted that one down, actually.
No, I mean, the most bizarre one was the one in London before the FA Cup semi-final for pure ridiculousness. Less on what was said, more memorable for the bizarreness of it. But no, in terms of what was said, there's nothing off the top of my head. Samuel's memory for this, recall for this, is better.
It possibly peaked in August, and these were back-to-back weeks, weirdly. The first one was when he told Simon Peach to do his research regarding Cristiano Ronaldo, and the next week was when he just completely ignored Gary Cotterill, the Sky Sports News reporter, because he didn't approve of his of the way he went about his job. And then it transpired that Cotterill had revelled in United getting battered by Brentford, and this was a twist to the plot. So yeah, as you really said, Stephen, Ten Hag has been pretty decent this season. It was becoming a bit more work towards the end of the season, given how many times we saw him. But I suppose, though, the best sit-downs we'd have had with him weren't press conferences. They were in Melbourne at Ami Park and at the team hotel in Cadiz, where there were no cameras, and you're just talking to him, and he was a lot more candid with the dedicated correspondent.
Yeah, the very minor dose of do your research that I got when I think it's pre-Fulham, when I asked about Casemiro and how they struggled without Casemiro, and I didn't quite get the do your research brutality treatment, but it was made very clear, shall we say, by response and body language that Ten Hag definitely didn't agree that United struggled without Casemiro. It was one of those where, I mean, he does always fix a gaze when he's answering you, but sometimes the gaze is a little bit more fierce and steely, and you very much get the impression that he's maybe not quite agreeing with the premise there, and that was one of those moments for sure.
All top managers have to have that side. And last one then, chaps, I think you could both probably provide an answer to this. What was the weirdest place that you filed a piece this season? Any motorways, any service stations, airport floors, cafes, bizarre cafes, anywhere that really comes to your mind? Ty's smiling, but I don't know what he's going to come up with.
No, I'm struggling to think of one.
I was at Lord's on a day off watching the test against South Africa, and I was told about. I mean, part of me hates me for even filing it, but I was told that Marseille wanted Eric Bailly, so I filed that. So yeah, sometimes even when you're on a day off and you're trying to switch off, have the escapism of the cricket, you can't completely switch off. So there are a lot worse places to be filing some news than Lord's. But yeah, I was quite sunburnt as well at that point, and It was a very hot day, but that was just off my phone. Unfortunately, I didn't have my laptop there and get Q out and do the curating and have to go into Getty to download it. It was merely just filing it off the phone.
I think that's a strong hint, Tyrone, because Samuel's saying to me, Stephen, wrap up the podcast. The Ashes is on. I want to go carry on doing my work and put the Ashes on the background. I think that was a strong hint with that answer. Was it, Samuel?
It's a nice day, Newmont.
In the Bazball era, you'd be rushing through a Bayou ball line on Bayou going to Marseille. I think you can't take your eyes off Test cricket at the moment, especially not for Eric Bayou.